Victory Boy! Show me a move. Good news, everyone. When you see onions have
Welcome to 20th Century Boy. My name is Radio Mike, and this is the inside of my mind. Hello everyone, Radio Mike here, Australia's most lovable nerd. Absolute pleasure to be in your presence again. Well, I guess I'm not really in your presence. I'm in your ear presence. Because if I was in your presence, I would be in your proximity. But I guess it's possible that I am in the proximity of someone listening to this right now. Everyone, do a 360, look around. If you do happen to see me while I am saying this, if I just happen to be in your proximity, which is possible. I know a lot of listeners of this podcast live in Melbourne. You have won the podcast. If you actually have, you've won the podcast. The podcast is over. You won it. That's it. Because that's what we were doing this whole podcast, trying to find someone who is in my proximity at the exact time they're listening to that. You've won. Congratulations. Send us in your name and we'll send you out a prize. Lots to get to today. It will be a very busy show. And I usually start the podcast just talking about my week and what I've been up to, sharing some wacky stories from the life that is Radio Mike's. The life of a mid-20s young man living on his own and trying to make his way through the ragtag world of radio and podcasting and life and everything in between. It's been a pretty good week. It's been quite a busy week. I am recording this on Tuesday, the 9th of June. It's currently 5:21 p.m. according to my MacBook Pro. And it is, it's been really busy. A lot of the times by this time of the week, because my weekends tend to be Fridays and Saturdays, by Tuesday's kind of like my hump day. I generally work Sunday through like the first half of Friday, so it's very busy. I'm usually really tired by Tuesday, but I'm always committed to smashing out this podcast. So thank you so much for being here. I hope you've had a really good week as well. I wanted to start this week by welcoming you all with open arms and inviting you all with open invites to the 20th Century Boy Discord. Discord is basically like a big group chat app with multiple different threads and areas of discussion. The Discord is the best way to interact with the community around 20th Century Boy during the week. It is so much fun. I am laughing so much being in there. And if you like this podcast and you like the kind of stuff we talk about on this podcast, or if you like me, Radio Mike, you'll probably enjoy being in the Discord, which is just generating so much fun content. The best way to do it, I try to put a link in the description, or just DM me on Instagram, radio.mike. There are a bunch of ways you can get involved with this show, by the way. It's not just that. The first one is the Discord. There's also Radio Mike Pod, P-O-D, at gmail.com. 1-800-GET-FUCKED to leave a voice message. 1-800-438-353. That is a phone number that was crowdfunded by the radio family. You guys, the listeners of this podcast, crowdfunded us over $300 to purchase that phone number, which we now own. You can also join the Facebook group, facebook.com/group/20th Century Boy. Really, there is no excuse for listeners of this show to not be contributing to the show. No, but if you don't want to contribute, that's fine. But so many amazing contributions coming through, one of which is radio DJ Marky Mark. Welcome to the radio family, radio DJ Marky Mark, who we assume is a DJ. We assume he can be the official DJ of the show. Perhaps if there is ever a live event, if we ever get to a point where we can do live events in the world again, we will enlist DJ Marky Mark to be the official DJ of that event. Radio DJ Marky Mark, and I'm aware that he is not the only one, but a lot of people have sort of newly discovered the podcast, and that's great. Welcome to the show. I hope you're still with us and enjoying it. But a lot of them have started at the 2020 season, which is a great place to start. But then a few people, one of whom is DJ Marky Mark, have gone back to the original 2019 episodes. Last year, there were 48 episodes. And DJ Marky Mark, amongst others, is pretty much binge listening to a bunch of episodes from 2019, and he's basically giving all these blasts from the past in the Discord. And one of the key things that I like to do on this podcast is explore like mental health through the kinds of pop culture that I've viewed in the past. And we got this great message in from DJ Marky Mark on the Discord. And he was listening to one of the episodes from last year where I believe I was talking about Toy Story 4, which was the most recent addition in the Toy Story Pixar movie franchise, which was quite a heartfelt journey and quite a heartfelt addition to Woody, the character from Toy Story's story. I guess he is one of the toys that the Toy Story is about, possibly the main toy. And he said, I listened to your Toy Story podcast. I had a really big conversation with my girlfriend the other day about how I found it really hard because I went through a bad time with mental health and walked out on the other side with no friends because I was always the one who would organize everything. And so when I stopped doing that, they stopped being friends. There was something so cathartic in hearing your reflections on Toy Story that sometimes friends, as amazing as they were at the time, they were a season. And rather than trying to constantly rekindle that or get back to the past, we appreciate the memories we have and live with the people who are just with us in the present, because that's how life gets better in the future. And I just thought this was a really great message to receive, because I think looking back to that episode about Toy Story 4, I was just talking about the struggles that Woody as a character has with moving on from his past with Andy, his owner, I guess. But, you know, within the movie, you know, it's almost like this special bond, and he longs for the past. He longs for the happiness of the past where Andy was a kid and Woody was Andy's favorite toy. But he also sort of comes to this conclusion at the end of Toy Story 4 and even at the end of Toy Story 3 that those times are never going to come back in his life, and that unfortunately the past is the past and he can't ever change what's happened, being Andy growing up as the conflict. And he decides to move on and cherish the memories that he has, but realize that it's not a relationship that can continue. And I feel like we've all gone through moments like that where we're like looking back on old friendships and feeling disappointed about the way we've been treated and just feeling like, oh, okay, well, I guess there are some positive memories of that, but I can't go back to it, and I can just cherish those memories, but accept that that's a part of my past that might not come back. So thanks for writing in, DJ Marky Mark. The other thing is that there was a running theme on the podcast last year, which was that every contribution to the show, every contribution earns you mic points. Essentially, mic points are the currency of the show. They are non-transferable. They are not exchangeable for any good or service outside of the show. And 300 mic points allows you to become a radio superstar. A radio superstar is a higher tiered member of the podcast. There are currently, I can't even remember them all. I think there's 7 or 8. The first one was Radio Superstar Sophie. After that was Radio Superstar Pat. There's Radio Superstars Liam and Zach. Radio Superstar Bailey. There are a few more, and you can all become one. You just have to exchange 300 mic points and pass a test. Last year, the test to become a radio superstar was I rang you on the phone and you had to answer the phone with I wake up with today. And you didn't know when the call was coming or when to expect it, right? And that was last year's way. I want to change it up this year, but I want your help. I want members of the radio family. You decide how, after you exchange your 300 mic points, how do you become a radio superstar? Any kind of test, any kind of Jeopardy, we can put the candidates in to prove that they want to be radio superstars. Let me know. Let's brainstorm ideas. We'll talk about that next week. Thank you. I realize you may be quite overwhelmed by the lore of 20th Century Boy so far if you are new to the podcast, but I will say welcome and stick with it. Try and catch up. We're all on the same page here. We all want to understand everything that's going on. But each week, the podcast just becomes increasingly more complex in its lore. And I suppose being in the Discord is a great way to get your head around a lot of the lore of the show. There are currently a lot of threads in the Discord that you're able to participate in. For example, there's the I can't sleep thread. That's a thread you can post in when you can't sleep. There's also the it is raining thread, a thread you can only post in when it is raining in your general area. And there is also one of the threads which was created this week, because we definitely don't have enough threads, and that is the what are you doing thread, where you take a photo and you explain to everyone else what you're doing. So that thread's been on fire. Definitely get into that thread and tell everyone what you're doing. To catch a few people up on some of the lore, there is also a thread that is called Enemies of the Show. This podcast, like most podcasts, has a few enemies. Over the year and a half that we've been doing this podcast, we have accumulated a few enemies. So I just wanted to make sure we're all aware of who all of the enemies on the show are, so that we can all make sure we treat them as enemies if we ever encounter them. The two newest enemies to the show, the first one is Alan Jones. Now, obviously, Alan Jones is a recently retired radio broadcaster from here in Australia, and he's known for some pretty controversial views. That's not why he's our enemy. He is a lot of people's enemy for those things, and rightly so. He's not our enemy for that. He's our enemy because he stole the idea of the radio family from us. He stole that idea. He used the term radio family on his last show. He referred to his listenership as the radio family. He is our enemy.
I'm taking this opportunity to indicate to my radio family.
The second most recent enemy is Christian O'Connell from the Christian O'Connell Breakfast Show, because he constantly insults me on air on his show. And then a fallen member of the radio family, a fallen listener of this show. He was known as Radio J Stokes. He is now known as Enemy J Stokes. He is one of the major enemies of the show. The reason he is one of the major enemies of the show is because he sent in a bird story for one of our segments, Bird Stories, that I accused him of making up. And after that accusation, he declared war on the show. So he's actually an involuntary enemy. He declared war on the show. He declared war on us. He is Enemy J Stokes. He's sort of like the Lucifer of the show. So Lucifer was one of God's angels. He decided he didn't like how God was running heaven, so he decided to start up hell as a counter to heaven, and he became Satan. J Stokes is sort of like the Satan of the show. So Enemy J Stokes. But the biggest enemy of our show, and I just want to remind everyone that we're all still thinking about this, the biggest enemy of the show is the other Radio Mike. For those who don't know, there is a guy, I think he's from somewhere in America, who calls himself Radio Mike, and he owns the website radiomike.com, a website that if you go to it right now has clearly not been updated since probably 1922 when the internet was invented. It is a website that looks like it was made literally pre-internet. Like, it is the worst website. It hasn't been updated since the 90s, and it's awful. So I assumed he wasn't using the website, so I asked him if I could buy the domain off him and offered him $150. He counter-offered with $10,000. I then wrote a song about him called The Other Radio Mike, and I haven't spoken to him since after sending him that song, which I don't believe he liked. The song, which did feature on an episode of this podcast, basically just accused him of trying to rip me off and told him that he should get fucked and that I wouldn't pay him $10,000. It had to be said. So for all of you who are new to the show, just familiarize yourself with some of this. Those are the enemies of the show. Those are the people that should be running through your mind most of the time. I'd say 22 hours of the day. Well, you're sleeping for a lot. So say you're awake for like 16 hours a day. Probably a good 10 of those hours you should be thinking about are the enemies of the podcast. I'm aware of the fact that we haven't had a new segment on this show for a while, and that is why we are tentatively launching 2 brand new segments on the show today. And I want to do the first one right now. This is a segment I've been thinking about doing for a while, and it could either be the best segment to ever hit the show, or the biggest fail in the history of the show. I don't know how this is going to work out, but it is a segment that works over 2 weeks. And this segment is called This.
Lost in translation.
Lost in translation.
Now, the more I think about this, the more I realize that this idea isn't that original, and this has possibly, in fact, probably been done on another radio show or podcast in the world somewhere. But we're going to do it at least once. As you heard, it's called Lost in Translation. The way Lost in Translation works is as follows. I am going to take a key lyric, or like a stanza or a verse, from a well-known song. A song that most people would know is what I'm going to endeavor to do. And then I am going to run it through Google Translate 10 to 30 times to different languages. For example, I'll just go English to French, French to German, German to Chinese, Chinese to Ukrainian, Ukrainian to Japanese, etc., 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 and then retranslate it to English. Then all you guys will hear is the final thing that Google spits out. It could be miles away from the original, or it could be similar to the original. Ideally, it's somewhere in between where it's still discernible, but it's not obvious and you have to do a bit of thinking about it. I don't know how this is going to work. If it's a shit game, let me know. I thought we'd just try it once. Now, the only way you can respond, you can all discuss it wherever you want, I don't care, but if you want to answer, you have to leave a message at 1-800-GET-FUCKED. Just leave a message, say the song that you're guessing, say your name, and then either I'll play that message or I'll get you up on the show to give your guess. Now, as I was doing it, I was logging all the language changes I did because I was going to be like, okay, this is what I did. But then I realized that that's stupid because then you guys can just reverse engineer it and get the answer. So it actually doesn't matter. But I will say that multiple different alphabets have been translated in and out. And I think this is a real good sweet spot, what we've ended up with. I would say that I've done about 20 different language changes here. Here we go. Google, take it away.
Initiating translation process protocol. 22% complete. 50% complete. 77% complete. 100% complete. Translation result is: you hit someone and you hit him on the head. My inbox is turned off. The mother's life begins.
Wow. And just to repeat that for you all with my voice, special thanks to Google for taking care of that with the translation process protocol that it ran. The translated lyrics are: you hit someone and you hit him on the head. My inbox is turned off. The mother's life begins. It's pretty tricky. Have a think about it during the week. Give 1-800-438-353 a call and say, hey Mike, it's me, Radio, Damien, or whoever you may be, and just say, I think it might be this song. I think I'll give a clue each time. I think there is a key word in there. There is one key word in that has sort of, that has really lasted the translation. Not in an exact way. I don't know if this is confusing it more. But there is one word in there that has definitely lasted through that translation. So, guys, have fun with the first ever Lost in Translation. I hope you find this segment as fun as I thought it would be in my mind. Over the weekend, I caught up with one of my childhood friends, Vinny. Vinny is a year younger than me, and he actually beat me in ATAR scores, I remember this distinctly, by 0.45 or something, which was really disappointing for me because he literally just beat me. And he's currently in his second last year of studying to be a vet. Really noble profession. He's really enjoying it. He's really found his way, and I think he's really keen to get out there into the workforce. Now, the reason I'm talking about my friend Vince is because he actually asked me to do a little bit of work for him. He, for whatever reason, his PhD in veterinary science or whatever it is, one of his assignments is to make a fake vet podcast. You have to make an episode of a podcast that doesn't exist that's like educating children on animal welfare and stuff like that. So he comes to me, he's like, hey man, I've got no idea how to record this or do it. How do we do it? I said, oh, don't worry, man. Leave it to old Mikey boy. One of the most experienced bloody podcast producers in the country. I'll take care of it for you. So he sends me all this audio of him and his group mates in the podcast that he's doing, which is called Vet the Facts. And great name, by the way. It's like Get the Facts, Vet the Facts. And I cut it all together for him, and I'm just listening to it. And the first thing I noticed is that Vinny has given himself the starring role in the podcast, which is all scripted, by the way. He's sent me a script. They've all recorded their lines. His part goes for probably 3 times as long as anyone else's part, which I found very funny. But the other thing was, I just didn't get it. I was sitting there the whole time. They were using lots of terminology that I was unfamiliar with, lots of vet terminology, lots of animal terminology, and I thought, great, clearly they know their stuff. I just don't get it. To be honest, the whole time I was doing it, I felt a little bit stupid. And I just wanted to, obviously, you know, I'm doing a little freebie for Vinny, just doing him a little freebie, save him some time. He's a great mate of mine. Obviously, you got to throw some freebies out to your mates sometimes, and in hopes that, you know, they'll throw a favor back sometime. You know, they'll owe you one. And I thought I'd give him a call now because what I've done is I've made a little opener to the podcast, to the fake podcast, that I really want to play him, that I think is really fitting to my experience of listening to the podcast. So we'll get Vinny up on the line now. He doesn't know anything about what's going on. So, yeah, let's dial that number in.
Hello?
Vinny, Mike, how are ya?
Oh, yeah, good, man.
What's going on?
Have you got a new phone number or something? It didn't come up on my screen.
No, I don't have a new phone number. What?
Yeah,
What, did it say private number or no number?
No, it just has the numbers.
Oh, that's weird. Maybe you don't have my number saved.
Yeah, that's all right. I'll just update it.
How are you anyway, man?
Yeah, not bad. How you doing?
Yeah, good, man. I did your thing over the weekend, so I just wanted to call you to let you know I've done that, and I'll send it through tonight.
Yeah, how'd it go?
Yeah, it was really good, man. It didn't take very long at all, so it was really easy for me. So good stuff.
Yeah, that's good. Great. Yeah, I was hoping it'd be like that because it's pretty simplistic.
Yeah, it was really easy to put together. Yeah, the only thing I thought was I didn't get any of it. Like, as someone who's not in the vet industry, I just didn't get anything from it. Like,
Really?
I didn't understand it.
Yeah, bugger. I mean, I think, yeah, we sort of submitted a draft and the lady was pretty happy with it, so I think no one had the motivation to change it up, really.
Oh yeah, no, it's totally fine. It was great.
Good point, though. It was designed to be like a scientific communication to not science people. So
yeah,
the fact that you understand it's
yeah, well that's all right, man. Like, it was really good. I enjoyed it. I learned a lot, but I didn't know, a lot of the terms I didn't get. But just to produce it up a bit, to make it a proper thing, I made a little opener for it as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah, just to instead of it just coming in cold, I just put a little sting on the top of it.
Ah, cool.
Yeah, I can play it to you
Okay.
down the line if you want, just so you can approve it.
Let me hear it.
Yeah, all right. I'll just play it for you now.
Vet the Facts, a fake podcast by trainee vets, talking all things animals which you don't understand. You fucking loser. You stupid loser. You don't know anything about animals. Why are you even fucking listening to this podcast, you fucking dog? Vet the Facts.
And then it'll just that's when you guys would come in. So that.
Yeah, that sounds pretty good. I think that sort of fits the target demographic of kids.
Oh, is it for kids?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, well that'll work well for them, wouldn't it?
That's actually, though, I was 95% expecting it to just be "My name is Jeff."
Wait, at what point did you catch on that this phone call was a joke?
As soon as you said you were going to play it for me, I was like, this is just going to be "My name is Jeff." This will be the theme of Dr. Mario.
I am recording this for my podcast, by the way.
Yeah, fair enough, man. Go, you spread the word.
No, so I did do your thing, and I'm not putting that opener on the top of it. Don't worry, I will send it to you tonight without the opener.
Yeah, fair enough.
And
yes, I mean that's your artistic discretion, man.
The other thing I did want to bring up is the fact that you had undisputably the longest and biggest part in this podcast. I was just wondering if that was intentional.
Well, no, it wasn't intentional, as in everyone else was meant to do more.
So you're saying that you were the hardest worker, which is why your part went for like 10 minutes and everyone else's part went for like 3 minutes.
Yeah, well, I wrote half of my part and someone else wrote the other half of my part. And then the other two parts were meant to be like similarly made that much effort, but everyone sort of phoned it in from they put effort in for like one night and then like just never went back to it, even though I was like, yeah, we just did drafts, guys, are we like gonna increase their output? And they're just like, nah, that's totally fine.
But didn't you just say you made someone else write half of yours?
Like that's how we split it up, because like it's 5 of us in a group, and like the person who was like one of the people who was the host, they had to contribute, so they wrote like half of mine with me, and then the other 2 people wrote a second part of it, and they just put in like 15% as much effort.
Well, it's a great podcast. Everyone should check it out. It's called Vet the Facts. It won't be made public, but if you can get your hands on it, I highly recommend it. Vince, thank you. I will send through the real Vet the Facts later tonight.
Cool, man. Thanks so much for helping me out and putting me into a larger performative art piece.
No worries, man. And when I have a dog in the future, if he ever gets sick, I know who to call to put him down.
Yeah, exactly. And I will really have an interesting opener to the putting down ceremony.
Okay, see you, mate.
Yeah.
Bye. Aside from making fake vet podcasts, I've also been doing a fair bit interacting with you guys, the fans, the listeners of the show who I love. And again, thanks to all of you for being here and persisting with the show. One thing that did come up in the Discord, and I did forget to mention, there is a key thread in the Discord that is called the My Name is Damien thread. You can only post in that thread if your name is Damien. We currently have no Damiens in the Discord. So please, if your name is Damien and you listen to this podcast, jump in the Discord. That's your thread. You're running that thread. There is a thread there for a Damien to take over. We want to find the first Damien of this podcast. But aside from that, it came up that one of the first ever segments I did for radio was the segment Mike's Likes as a part of the Luke and Lewis show on Triple M Modern Digital, which was basically just me talking about stuff that I liked. I'll put a snippet in from the first ever one we did.
So what's the segment that you've been so badly wanting to do for 4 months?
I wanted to do a segment that's all about me and the kind of stuff that I like, and it's a bit of a groovy segment. It's just a chance.
Play the opener.
It's just a chance. I'll just play the opener.
Money, cars, Nintendo 64, radio, music, art, culture, school, learning, culture. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 4 on PlayStation 2. Everything that's popular right now. This is Mike's Likes.
Okay.
It's Mike's Likes.
Okay, before we start Mike's Likes, I got so many things. Firstly, you were mouthing along to that as it was playing.
No, I wasn't.
Yes, you were. You were like,
I saw.
You mouthed and Pro Skater 4 to yourself as it was playing. And secondly, you just said before that it's not like no one cares about money anymore. Yet you included money in the intro.
What can I say, guys? It's just the kind of guy I am.
Right.
What a hypocrite.
And as the week... Great times, really different times, great times. Loved that segment. From there, the guy who sort of replaced me on the Luke and Lewis show, Keelan Brown, he started doing a segment called Keelan's Mealins, which was a segment where he talked about all the things he'd been eating that week, Keelan's Mealins. And we started getting thinking in the Discord, for all the listeners in the Discord, what would your segment be that's like a rhyming segment name, like Mike's Likes, Keelan's Mealins, Damien's Namians, like stuff like that. And we got a lot of responses. So what I decided to do was open up another brand new segment on the show. And it is currently not named because it is currently undecided what the segment will be. That sounds weird, Mike. Tell me more. Well, guys, every week for the next few weeks, one lucky listener is going to come on the show and pitch their segment. whether it's Mike's Likes, again, Keelan's Mealins, etc., etc. Now, the first one up is radio superstar Pat, a very loyal listener of the show. Of course he is. He's a radio superstar. How could he be anything else? He sent in this voice message over the weekend to 1-800-GET-FKD.
G'day, Mike. It's Radio Superstar Pat here. I don't know if you're going to do this segment, but if we're going by what was being discussed in the Discord, then here's my proposal for my namesake segment. I give you Pat's Snacks. Basically, so I've been doing a lot of cooking and baking and all that stuff, so I thought, how about a segment where I talk about snacks I've made? Pat Snacks? I don't know. Let me know what you think. Thank you, Mike.
Now, Pat, I do want to say thank you for being the first person to submit their segment. A lot of them did come in the Discord. I'd love for you to send them as voice messages so people can hear them from your mouths. Either attach a voice message to an email, radiomikepod@gmail.com, or call the number, leave a voice message. But if you're anything like me, guys, you already know my major gripe with what Pat has done here. So I've asked Pat to come on the phone on the show today, and I've asked him to do that under the guise that he's going to be doing the segment. He's going to be pitching it officially. However, he is not going to be doing that because I'm sure you all know that Pat's Snacks is not a rhyming segment. Listen to these again, and Pat, you will hear this when you listen to it. Mike's Likes, Keelan's Mealins, Damien's Namians, Pat's Snacks. Not a rhyme, Pat. Really disappointed in you for that. Now, Pat hasn't heard any of this, but he is on the line with me now. Radio superstar Pat, welcome back to the show, man.
Thanks, man. How you doing?
Yeah, good. How have you been?
Yeah, not bad, man. Just, well, the thing is, at these troubled times, as they say, and all the ads and whatnot, there's not a whole lot to do. I mean, granted, with all the restrictions being slowly lifted. But if you really want to know what I've been doing, I've been exploring my creative side in the kitchen.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. The listeners have just heard the voice message that you sent in to 1-800-GET-FUCKED. So they've heard that. So you are sort of, I assume you're kind of hinting towards what you've said in that with that statement you've just made?
That is exactly what I was hinting at, yes.
Yeah, great, man. So I guess the main thing I want to speak to you about, because obviously each week I'm going to get a listener on, they're going to pitch a segment to do with their name, and the winner, I'm going to put it to a poll after a few people have submitted, and the winner gets to do this segment for 2 weeks, right?
Right.
And as the listeners have heard, and as I know and as you know, your submission is Pat's Snacks.
That's correct.
Yeah, and I did get you on the show today under the pretense that you'd be pitching the segment, right?
That's correct.
Unfortunately, we're not doing that today, Radio Superstar Pat. And the reason for that is, and I'm really disappointed in you for this, because Pat's Snacks, does that rhyme?
I mean, I think it rhymes. I mean, yeah, it's not an exact perfect rhyme, but I mean, it's like kind of works. That's just my opinion, though. I respect your opinion. I completely respect that. But I mean, come on, Mike, throw me a bone.
Mate, as soon as I heard Pat Snacks, I was really shocked because I don't think, I personally, and I'll put it out to the radio family for their opinion, I don't believe that Pat and Snack, like think of my segment, it's based on Mike's Likes. Keelan went on and did Keelan's Mealins, and you're coming in with Pat's Snacks, which is almost like, that's like me doing Mike's Dimes or something like that. That doesn't.
I see what you're getting at. Yeah.
Like if I had come on the Luke and Lewis show back in the day and said, "Hey guys, I'm doing Mike's Dimes," yeah, it doesn't really have a ring to it, does it?
Okay, I just thought of how about I rename it right now?
No. Here's what's happening. Right?
Oh wait, you've got me right now. I have the perfect resolution, and you're not giving me the chance.
Well, I'm putting a strike against your name. That's and there's a new rule. If a radio superstar gets 5 strikes, they are demoted back to a standard radio family member. You've got 1 strike for this because I think it was pretty audacious that you did that. I will allow you to offer your resolution.
Okay, well, my resolution. So, Pat Snacks, you're right. It's probably not the best run in the world. And here, let me ask you this, Mike. What do snacks contain? Don't answer that. That's right. They contain fat. So, Pat, fat. If you want, you can imagine saturated in the middle, but we won't say that just for the rhyme sake. But Pat's fat.
Yeah. So
I mean, not to be confused with Fatberg, but
So is the premise of the segment that you're going to talk about how much fat is in the food that you've eaten?
Well, yes. So, as I've told you before, or if the listeners aren't aware, I've been doing the keto diet for about 7 months now. 7 months today, actually.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, and
happy anniversary to you and Mrs. Keto.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, Mrs. Keto and I, we go way back. Wait, who says that in an anniversary thing? Anyway, so yeah, foods have a high amount of fat because the thing is you don't have carbs and you don't have sugar.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for example, something I have in almost everything, even my coffee. Yes, that's right, my coffee. I put butter in my coffee. Yeah, does that sound pretty diabetic? Yes, it does.
You put butter in your coffee?
Yeah, man. That's the best part about Pat's. Sorry, not Pat's Snacks, Pat's fat. You know, we get to talk about foods that incorporate fat, and butter has a very high fat content. So, and I've made plenty of stuff with butter. I think a lot of people do. Look, I mean, this probably isn't sounding too. You're probably not impressed, and you know, I don't blame you. You know, maybe I do deserve that strike, but if you can find it within your heart, you know, just, you know, all we're saying is just give Pat a chance. You know.
Okay.
I think this would be a good compromise, and I have a snack in front of me right now which I can talk about, which I didn't want to talk about, but I happen to have it. So.
Well, that would be doing the segment, which we're not quite up to. We're still in the pitch. So
we're still in the pitch. Okay.
Here's what's happening. I'm really happy with the peaceful resolution of this. You do have
me too.
You do have a strike against your name. Don't worry.
And fair enough.
You get 5 strikes. So
Great.
It's highly unlikely you're going to do 4 very bad things in the podcast community by the end of the year. They expire at the end of the year, so it has to be in 1 calendar year, right? So
okay. So it's like demerit points or something.
Yeah, you're probably going to be fine. But this is more of just a warning. Now, your official pitch for the segment is Pat's fat, right?
Yep.
And next week we'll have someone else. The week after we'll have someone else until they run out, and then we'll put it to a poll. So you do get to pitch your segment Pat's Fat, where you talk about the fat content in the food you eat. Getting dangerously close to Keelan's Mealins, I will say that.
True.
But a different
True.
angle.
However, Keelan, Keelan's Mealins is an all-inclusive umbrella of a segment. For me, it's very exclusive.
Yeah. Great. Okay, well, Pat, thank you for joining me on the show. I appreciate it. Hopefully you win.
No worries. Thank you very much. And Radio Family, I hope you can forgive me because I'm sure Mike's probably gone on before I came on talking about, Pat's Snack. That doesn't rhyme. Oh.
Thanks, Pat.
Take it easy.
Finally on the show this week, we do need to talk about Radio Nacho Cheese. Again, if you're new to the show, wow, really bad one to join in on, but welcome, and hopefully this all makes sense to you. Radio Nacho Cheese is the best friend of the show. He sends us a monthly update where he updates us on everything he's been doing for the month. But last month, the end of May, he did not provide a monthly update. We wondered what happened. He then contacted me and left quite a heartfelt message, pretty much very ambiguous. Very, very ambiguous about why he missed it, how he was feeling, that he was feeling a little bit off. Very ambiguous stuff. But we basically got around him and we started the hashtag Spread Your Wings Nacho Cheese, where we basically said, Nacho, we want you here as the best friend of the show. We want you here as that. But if you're done with it, you got to spread your wings and fly. You've got to dip yourself into the salsa and nacho your cheese on. And we'd understand that. We weren't really sure what was going to happen from there, but I will let all of you know that Nacho Cheese, who does go by Nacho Cheese, he is anonymous, we don't know his real name. He has also gone by several pseudonyms, including Sergeant Cheese, Professor Cheese, Dr. Cheese, different names. We don't know much about him. He sent me an email, the subject line, "Thanks for the support." The message, "Thanks for the support in this week's podcast. I'll be back Monday, June 22nd, 2020. Hashtag wings will be spread. Hashtag it's war Christian." That's in reference to to Christian O'Connell being one of the enemies of the podcast. And he signs off this time with Surgeon NC, as in Surgeon Nacho Cheese. And I'm sure you're all applauding. If you're not applauding at the moment, I would be applauding now. This is the correct time to applaud. Nacho, we are so happy to have you back on the ranks. June 22nd, 2020 is when he will leave his next monthly update, and we are so grateful that he's going to come back to the monthly update business. Nacho Cheese, thank you so much for being back. I know we all really appreciate it. Hashtag spread your wings, Nacho Cheese. Now, the ongoing quest to find out Nacho Cheese's true identity may have come to a head because one keen-eared listener does believe that he may know the identity of Nacho Cheese. And Nacho, I bet your ears have pricked up a little bit upon hearing that. It's Radio Robbie. Welcome to the radio family, Radio Robbie. Thanks for contributing. He sent me a message on Instagram saying, "Mike, it's Robbie here. Had to pause the latest podcast episode of yours to question the identity of the fearless leader Nacho Cheese. I have a queasy suspicion," and get this, guys, because this is a pretty radical move. "I have a queasy suspicion that it is your sneaky cousin Dave." Now, obviously, over the past few months, my cousin Dave has been a featuring character in the podcast, with the podcast within a podcast, The Dave and Mike Show. New listeners, head on back and listen to it. Now, Robbie continues. "Since Dave is so shy he can't commit to an actual podcast, he shines towards an undercover persona, and their voices sound very similar. Correct me if I'm wrong." Now, I had to think about this for a bit. For you all who can't remember, I'll give a little sample of Radio Nacho Cheese's voice here. This is from one of his old updates.
G'day, Radio Mike. It's Radio Nacho Cheese here again.
And here's a sample of my cousin Dave's voice.
Yo, Mikey.
Now, I will say that they are slightly similar, but this does feel very out of character for Dave. I will say that much. This does feel very out of character for Dave, but really, I don't know what to expect from Dave. Next week, I'm hoping to bring back the Dave and Mike Show for another segment, and I think I will question Dave on this. I will question him and raise with him whether he is Nacho Cheese. However, Radio Robbie, you have made quite a serious allegation here. You have made a pretty bold call. And basically, if Dave can definitively or convincingly, let's say on the balance of probabilities, let's go with a civil case level of burden of proof, if Dave can prove that he is not Nacho Cheese, I would appreciate it, Robbie, if you sent in a written apology to the show to both Dave and Nacho Cheese for confusing them and believing, and for accusing them of being the same person. Robbie, I hope you're right, Robbie. I really do hope you're right, but I don't think you are. Okay, it's been a bit of a roller coaster episode this week. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. I really appreciate this. This podcast is some of the most fun I have all week, but also being in the Discord, the Facebook group, all the stuff that you guys contribute. Again, you guys, the radio family, build the show. This show is about you guys. This show is built on the stuff that you submit to the show, and it's just great seeing all the funny stuff you guys are submitting. So heaps of stuff you can do. I'll just remind you of a bunch of the segments. Oh, send in your answer to Lost in Translation via a voicemail. Either call the number or leave an audio message on an email via attachment. Let me know what you think the new way to become a radio superstar can be. Make sure to think about the enemies of the podcast a lot. Also send in your pitches for a rhyming segment to do with your name. The winner, after a few weeks, I might put it to a listener poll. They get to do their segment on the show for at least 2 weeks. And the other things you can do is there's so many other segments that we visit a lot. You can get in the Discord and discuss them, but there are Rhyme Crimes, a segment that I am feeling ready to bring back. Rhyme Crimes are when artists use the same word as a rhyme in a song. Make sure they adhere to Brody's Law. If you don't know what Brody's Law is, again, probably not one for new listeners, but just submit them and I'll tell you if they adhere to Brody's Law or not, because Rhyme Cop Brody will be all over that. You can also send in red carpet catastrophes, movies that are critically panned that you think are really good, and make a case for them. There are heaps of segments you can contribute to, and they just... there's always more and more. Bird stories, any story with you and a bird, send in as well. I'd love to read those. Get involved with the show. It's great having you all. You can also listen to my other podcast, Popped, a pop culture podcast that I do with my co-host Alex. Here's a snippet from this week's show where we talk about the music, movies, games, TV shows, and other pop culture we've consumed that week. So interestingly, Chet Faker went to the same school that me and Alex went to, and when we were in year 12, I don't know if you remember this, but he came to our school and did like a speech about how he got a career in music, and he played No Diggity for us, and he was like, yeah, this is a song like I'm about to put out or something like that. And surely enough, it got really, really big not long or like not long before or after that. And that's kind of where we all discovered him.
Was this the same speech where one of the teachers kind of asked him, oh, so what at school really prepared you for your music career? And he was just like, nothing. Nothing at school really helped.
Yeah. A little bit more in-depth discussions on that show, so please go and check it out. The listenership of that is building every week, and we're really proud of it. If you're into games and nerd culture and anything like that, I think you'd really like it, so definitely check that out. The other thing I want to announce is that very soon I'm launching a video called Mike Games with Friends. I have filmed one. I want to film a few more before putting it out, but it's basically me playing games with friends, making a few jokes, sort of like a mini podcast video, talking to them about the game and other games they've played. The first one is with Keelan from the Luke and Lewis Show, playing Crash Team Racing Nitro Fueled on Nintendo Switch. So that'll go up on YouTube and IGTV, hopefully within the next week. So definitely keep your ears peeled for that. Here's a little bit of a teaser of some audio from that little video that's coming out soon. So have you played many racing games in your time?
I've played like Cars on Wii.
Have you actually played Cars on Wii?
Yeah, I used to play it all the time.
What? Is it good?
It's like you can free roam around Radiator Springs.
I don't know what that means. So keep your eyes peeled for that. I'd love for you to check it out once it's out. If you like the podcast, leave a review on iTunes, subscribe, tell 10 of your friends. Make sure it's exactly 10. Don't tell 9, because if you tell 9 of your friends about this podcast, you actually get cursed. So definitely make sure you tell 10 of your friends, 10 or more. Just don't tell less than 10 friends about the podcast. Other than that, guys, have a great week. Have a great weekend. My name has been Radio Mike, and this podcast has been The Inside of My Mind. See you later. Good